Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are and where we come from. So who are you and where'd you come from?
I'm Paula Johnston and I come from the North Strand, or the Strand Flats more precisely.
And Paula, thank you for sitting down with me, because I have been probably getting you a long time. I actually met you face to face at Danielle's 40th.
Yep.
But I knew of you through Danielle, then through Yasmin and yourself. But I always wanted to sit down with you, and this is how long's Danielle?
Over a year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half, yeah.
So and then I'm like haunting you. So I said to her, so tell me, Paula, what was it like growing up in town?
Growing up in the flats they're small flats, the Strand Flats. There was 34 tenants in it. It was good. It was, like everyone I think looks back on their childhood, and it's either you look back with rose tinted glasses that everything was great, or you look back and it was horrible. Mine would be, I suppose, somewhere in the middle. My ma was a widow at 35 years of age. She was pregnant on my youngest sister, Tammy. And there's 8 of us. The eldest was 9. I had just turned 2. And my dad was killed in an accident down the docks. My dad was a deep sea docker, but he was in port and he died on the SS Irish Oak.
What does that mean, he was a deep?
So he walked on the docks, but he also travelled. So he was a seaman. So he would have gone, like we used to slag me ma years ago. We had my dad's seaman's book. And there's 2 years, there's a year between the first 4, and then there's 2 years between the rest. And my dad's seaman's book, mad, like, I suppose, like for women who were left, raiding the kids. My dad could set sail on February 1962 and return 10 months later or something. You'd nearly time your ma becoming pregnant with my dad coming home.
Yeah.
So my dad died. He was only 35 as well. He had only turned 35 the 5th of February, and he died on the 17th of February.
How did he die?
He was, obviously you work on ships, so the cargo hold. Well, back then, when they'd be loading up the cargo hold, if you were taking a break or something, they'd cover. But what happened was, it was covered, but it was only covered with a very light sheeting of whatever it was, and my dad walked on it, and he went straight down. He died, massive brain trauma. He died in the Richmond hospital. And I wouldn't have any memories of him because I'd only turned 2. And the older ones in the family, they would have 1 or 2. Like my sister Anna, she'd say she has 3 memories of my dad, and the 3 memories where he's either bringing her to a hospital or collecting her from a hospital, because she was a bit of a tomboy. So she was always falling and that. So they're dramatic events that she would remember, but wouldn't actually have memories of him being. Now, the fact that he travelled a lot as well, memories of him being in the house, I suppose, where, no one would have really had. So my ma was left a very young widow in Catholic Ireland in 1966. And a couple of weeks after he died, the nuns from the local convent, from North William Street Convent, knocked over and said, best thing now for these children to get a good, proper upbringing would be us to take them over to the convent. And the 2 boys, 6 girls and 2 boys, 2 boys to go to, it would be a convent for boys. And my mum was a head case, Rebecca. Now, when I say a head case, my ma was a head case, all 4 foot of 11 of her. So my ma basically told the nuns, get the fuck off this lad. She threw them literally away. But that sparked a little thing in my ma, because my ma was from Cumberland Street, from Avondale House. And my ma had seen kids being taken, putting industrial skills. And my ma was terrified we'd be taken. So when for years I would have had a lot of resentment with my ma, because my ma was very harsh. Well, I did, obviously, I know I'm skipping a bit, but I did therapy then years later. And the therapist said to me, close your eyes and picture a 35-year-old woman in Catholic Ireland then, and the fear she must have had. So how my mass dealt with us was everything had to be perfect. So we had to be dressed perfect. We all had to be fat, because she had to feed us and feed us, because if the nun saw you skinny, then you were gone. And, there were things like that. But the fear of her living with that these were going to come and take her kids. So my dad died in February. Tammy, the youngest sister, despoiled one of the family. My ma used to say, she got away with more than me. I used to say, your father never looked on her face. I used to say, thank God he didn't. Because she was just ruined by my ma. But, so that she was born in September, and then my ma got, it's a government job. So widows were given jobs working, civil service it is, but they were cleaning. And my ma got a government job in the December. So she was raiding us and doing this. So she used to do 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening. But our morning was, my ma left the house. She worked in Dublin Castle. So she left the house at 5 in the morning. And she'd come back. We'd be all, now I have to say, when I wouldn't have memories when I was a baby. But from the time I started school, our house was ran like a fucking sergeant major. So my ma used to make the pot porridge before she left in the morning. That'd be ready. We'd all get up, fill it out. You washed your bowl after you. Like, she came home from work, wouldn't have had beds and all made. You had to do that before you went to school. And she'd come home then. We'd be in school. She'd have the dinner done. She'd do the dinner. Now, when we'd come in from school, the dinner was always ready. But my ma always lay down in the afternoon before she had our evening shift was from 4 to 8. And she'd say to us, yous don't move. Jack is watching yous. Now, no one knew who Jack was, but we literally never moved. We were like the weirdos of the flat, because my ma said don't move, and we didn't move. Because, like, my ma was, of the old school, spare the rod, spoil the child. So my ma could batter you, and I mean, she could fucking batter you. To the point where you'd bleed and all. And it was just like, that's what happened back then. But she loved, and my ma loved deeply and hard. Like the weekends, because my ma worked all week, Saturday morning she made a big fry, and you didn't get out of bed. She used to give us it in the bed. And she'd sit in the bed to tell us stories of the war. And a lot of them are made up stories. Like she used to tell, and she told the grandkids as well. They all, because when she died, one of the things that were brought up to the altar was a pretend bloodstained putty knife. My ma used to say she fought the Germans with the bloodstained putty knife. And the kids would be on, but we used to be like that in the bedroom. So there was loads of love, but there was also a lot of toughness. When it was toughness born out of fear. I was like the weirdo of the family, Rebecca, because all my sisters played down the flats. I read books. The Charleville Mall Library, when that was built, that was like my saving grace. Because, like, I never felt, like, from a very, very young age, some of my earliest memories, I'm not feeling like I fitted. I didn't belong in that family. I didn't. Now, it used to slag me when I was young, used to say you were adopted. But, and I know that's a flippant remark and people can say that, but I actually felt like I didn't belong in that family. There was something missing in me. And it was missing, like, from a very, very, very young age. I've recognised, like, as I've got older, there was a sadness in me that I didn't know where it came from. I couldn't articulate back then that I'm sad. So I used to just withdraw, and I'd withdraw it into books, and life was in books because that was an escape from me. I loved learning, loved school. That was my kind of thing, where the rest of me sisters and brothers would be down playing and coming up dirty, and I was always in the house. I was always like, I was just a bit distant from myself as well as from friends and all that. And then when I was 14, I used to be coming home from Kingston Street School in my little uniform, and this fella used to be standing on Kelly's corner in Talbot Street. And Christy Coakley was his name, became my husband. And he used to always ask me, do you want to go to pictures? Do you want to? And no. And then I used to go to discos from a very young age. Now, we hung around together, the 6 girls. So we were best friends and hung around together. Now, not my eldest sister, the 5. My eldest sister got married very young. So the 5 of us hung around together. So we all went. So I would have been very young going to discos, nightclubs. And anyway, one night I had a little lurch with him, and he asked me out, and he was a robber. And I said to him, well, I'll go out with you if you get a job. And like little me. And he got a job. And he got a job as a kitchen porter in a restaurant. And we dated for 4 years. And then after 4 years, I got pregnant on my first.
What was the 4 years like, the dating?
The 4 years, I didn't, none of us drank, Rebecca. So none of us, I never even tasted alcohol till the christening of me fourth child.
Were you all the same, not drinking alcohol?
All the same.
Was that from your
mum?
mum?
My ma loved to drink.
Does she?
My ma just said, you don't drink, and we didn't drink. We were like, I don't know, we were like robots, I suppose. So no, we just didn't. And so we used to go out, me and him. He was stunning looking. I mean, stunning. He was the image of John Travolta, and Saturday Night Fever and Grease and all was there at the time. It was just like looking at John Travolta. And he was soft, and he had a lovely heart. And he had a lot of, I was going to say trauma again, but that word. He had a lot of pain from his own family circumstances. His dad was an alcoholic, and there's a lot of trouble and sadness in his house. And we kind of just, we bonded. But I was like, when I think back, I was like a boss to him. Like I'd be saying what, has to go and where we go and what we do. And God help him, when I look back on it, he used to just go along with everything. He really used to just go along with everything. So we'd go, out dancing. And I remember after about 3 years, he was going on a holiday, and he said to me, can you come on? We go, Paul, it's 2 of us together. And I said to me, Mum, on a holiday, and you're not married at all. Sure. And my ma didn't talk about sex.
Yeah.
Sex wasn't, my ma had 8 immaculate conceptions. My ma did not talk about sex. So my ma was like, that other stuff could go on and all when you're on holidays. And I said, if she only knew. I was like, I'm so silly, ma, we're getting separate rooms and all.
Yeah.
But no, she wouldn't have a bar of us, so we didn't go.
How old were you then?
I'd have been, that year when he asked me to go on the holiday, I would have been 17, coming up to 18, almost 18. And no, he went on he went to Ibiza, that's where it was, Ibiza he went to. And I never even thought like that he would have been with anyone on the holiday, because I never thought for the 4 years I was with him that he was ever with anyone. I would have been, I'm a very trusting person, Rebecca, and in a lot of ways in my life, that has been to the detriment of me. But with him, I just thought, sure, he's mad about me. Why would he look everywhere else? So he went on the holiday, and when he came back, we kind of started sleeping together. And no, I would have been 18, we started sleeping together. And within a month of actually having sex, I got pregnant. I was like, I'm not going to say unlucky, because I'm a beautiful girl. Yeah. But it was and I was going on a student exchange to Eindhoven in Holland. And that was all booked and everything for me to go. So just before I went, I'd found out I was pregnant, and I was like, what do you do? What I couldn't even think of telling me, man. So I went to Holland, I went to Eindhoven, and I had a brilliant 6 weeks over there. Fantastic. But went into a fantasy over there of, what if I just stayed and didn't go home? Because I was imagining like me ma literally murdering me. I don't even mean hitting me. I mean, I had this fantasy she was going to murder me. So I had me 6 weeks in Eindhoven, and morning sickness and all was settling in. And I was staying with a host family, Yanni, and I told her, and she was like it was Holland, they were all free and things. She was looking at me like a 10 heads. What do you mean you can't tell your mother you're pregnant? But it was just a different culture, completely different culture. And anyway, I came home and I was sick and everything, and I was just in an awful state. And I'd start, just before I went, I suppose I didn't back then I couldn't say, oh, I noticed a change. But when I reflect, I had noticed things about Christy. I noticed he liked to drink, where I didn't drink at all. And it wasn't like, oh, you don't drink, that's what's wrong with you. He liked a drink. So when I came back, things weren't great with me and him. And I told him then, I said, look, I'm pregnant. And so he was like, now in fairness to him, he was like, we just get married. We just get married. Now, what we had been doing, just before I got pregnant, there was this development, Cherrywood out in Anger was being built, bungalows, dormer bungalows. And I had a good job. And Christy, at this point now, had worked his way up and he was the chef in the American Connection. So both of us were on a good wage. And we were going out to have a look at, and with the intentions of buying one of the dormer bungalows. But I got the bus out, me and him got the bus out, and I was sobbed. Oh, I couldn't live out here. I'd be found dead. Just one, I know what you're trying to do. I just couldn't believe it when I think about it. It's only in Clondalkin. Jesus.
It's so funny that happens. Yeah.
Well, Clondalkin was this really like the country back then. But so we didn't do that. But so anyway, I said to him, and he goes, well, we'll just get married. But I don't know where I was. In the pit in my stomach, I was like, no. Just some, they say your gut. It was like my gut was saying, don't. So anyway, I went to my ma and told my ma, and I was shocked at her reaction. She said, well, you're not getting married. And I was like, what? And she goes, you're not getting married. You're not marrying him. He's not marrying you and being able to throw into your face. He had to marry you. And I was like, so can I stay here? Is that a little, this is great. And she was amazing to me, true. Oh my God. She was amazing. Now, she loved Christy. My ma loved Christy. And even when I split her up with her, my ma loved Christy. But she did love him. But I think she kind of saw things as well. But anyway, when I was about, I'd say probably 5 months pregnant, like Christy was going out all the time, and I was, and I wasn't into going out. Then I was nesting. I wanted to have this baby. I was on this little bubble. But he was going out, and I said, no, I can't be with him. Like, I'm finishing with him. So I finished with him. Like I told you at the beginning of this, my mum was a head case. So my ma sat on the bed and she said, oh, so you're not with him anymore? And I said, no. And she goes, oh, well, you're any man's now. And I'm sitting in the bed going, and what? She goes, oh, you're any man's. I'm sure any man will think they have you now. I was devastated. I couldn't believe me ma could say. No, I do believe me ma could say something like that because she was mad. But that, to her, my ma always felt, if I shock you and hurt you, then you'll do the right thing. Right. That was her parenting style. We all have our parenting styles. That was me ma's. I'll shock you and hurt you, and then you'll fall back in line and do what you're supposed to do. She didn't want me to marry him while I was pregnant, but she didn't want me not to be with him. Like, that's too much for her. So anyway, I went into labour and I had a very, very traumatic birth. Danielle got stuck in the birth canal. It was too late for section, and she was actually born dead. And there was men didn't go in with you in the labour ward then. It was like a year or two later when that kind of started becoming the norm. So I was in the room on my own, and I remember them whipping her away, and I couldn't hear anything, and being brought back to a ward. I remember, because my mum was outside a labour ward, God love her. Christy had been in work when I went in, and then he'd come over, and the two of them, but no one was saying anything like what was going on or anything, and I just kept saying, I just need to see my baby, I just need to see my baby. And I had a lot of stitches and everything, so it was really bad. And I remember my mum just kept crying all the time. And my mum would go out, she'd come back in and she'd cry, and she'd come, but she never said anything. I kept saying, please, I just need to see her. And then the day, she was born at 11:55 in the morning, and the day was going, and it was going into the evening. I still hadn't seen, still hadn't heard. And that evening then, there was an old matron. Do you remember the matrons used to be in the hospital? So there was an old matron, Sister Walsh, her name was. I always remember her. And she was like, she ran our hospital really rigid. But she came down to me and she said, has mother seen the baby yet? And one of the nurses in the ward was saying, no, like she's had the epidurals, we have to be 12 hours after and whatever. And they wheeled me up. And when I went in they wheeled me into the NICU. I didn't even know what NICU was back then or anything. And they wheeled me in, and then I just saw there was tubes everywhere. There was lions in her. She had this helmet in the incubator. She also had this helmet over her head. And they said that when they got her back, that she'd started fitting. So she had like convulsions. She'd gone into convulsions. So they had to give her this medication called phenobarbital. And so she was basically out of it. She was just lying there out of it. And then the next day, then they started telling me like this, you know, there was lack of oxygen and there could be this. And I didn't care. She was the most beautiful baby you have ever seen in your life. She actually looked foreign. She was beautiful. And I think when they brought me up to see her that night, like for all the years before, this missing kind of feeling, it was like, you know, a little piece of a puzzle clicked in for me. And I got this, like, I never felt a love. Like, I've never felt anything when I saw my Danielle. Never felt like before that. I never felt. And I felt like, no, everything's like, she's going to be okay. And that's what was missing. And that's that little feeling that was always with me. I must have been waiting to be a mammy. Maybe a mammy's what I need to be. And then I took that literally and I kept having it. But anyway.
But isn't that like, you know, that there's so many of us that feel like we've been missing something in our lives until, so obviously you were missing the love of your dad. You're missing the life of your dad. Your mum had to take her path, which is, so you just took that. And this is like, we say like years later, it comes back to that moment that you did grow up without certain love in your life. Yeah. So when that was filled for you.
And that's what I felt, Rebecca. I felt in that intensive care on that night when they brought me up, I felt whole. But that whole didn't stay. Mm. I felt whole, I felt complete. And like she was in the intensive care for, I think she was intensive care for 9 days. And then we got her home. And like she was amazing. She was absolutely amazing. With all these things that they said could be wrong. You know Danielle. She doesn't have. Yeah. I know she's Geordie and she forgets things, but that's nothing to do with her bit. But she was brilliant. She was so clever with everything. But that feeling in me didn't last. Like I thought that was it now. Whatever it was, because I always felt, Rebecca, that there was something wrong with me. Like I didn't voice at the time, I think there's something wrong, but inside me, I always felt there was something wrong. But I never knew why there's something wrong. So when, in that moment when I saw her and I felt whole, then I was like, no, I'll be okay. Very quickly back to that feeling of something's not right. And then I always had this kind of like fear that I didn't know. It's only obviously in later life that we're all about anxiety and all. I didn't know it was anxiety, but I had anxiety. But I got pregnant. Within 3 months, I got pregnant on Yasmin. And we got married. And Yasmin again, traumatic. Now, not traumatic in that anything was wrong with her. She was born 5 weeks early. Right. And it was traumatic in that way. And when they handed me Yasmin, that feeling came back. And I was like, no, this is it. I just have to keep having kids. Yeah. I'm only happy when I have babies. So I had Yasmin and then I had Jade. And then I had my first boy, Blaine, and then I had Chris. And that was like, each time I had a baby, I got this, but it never lasted. And that feeling of everything's okay never lasted. And then while I was having these babies, my marriage was falling apart. I was falling apart. It was over the years, things had got really bad with Christy. His drinking had got so bad. He became like, he really became so selfish. Everything was about him. For the first, for Danielle, and I left work after I had Danielle. I went back after maternity leave. And then obviously I got pregnant so quick, so I left work. But by the time Yasmin was about, I'd say 6 months, I had taken on cleaning jobs in the evenings because Christy felt his wages was his wages. And, a pittance of that wages would go to you. And I would always class myself as a very strong woman. I've been in women's movements from the time I Even from the time I could write, I was looking for women's groups and women's movements. So I'd always class myself as very strong. But I was so weak. I was so weak. And I'd be a bit of a head case like my ma. So I'd fight with him. And I'd fight, and I was very, very violent to Christy. Christy hadn't a violent bone in his body. The man never hit back. But I really physically hurt him. And I physically hurt him. I learned in therapy and that I physically hurt him out of frustration and then there was other stuff going on that you see, in my surroundings, when I was young, I had witnessed a man be someone that I loved on numerous occasions. And that made me, there's no man ever going to do that to me. I don't care, there's no man, I'm going to get there before that. And it hardened me an awful lot. So, when Christy there'd be no money, he'd just go out and bring nothing home. And I was constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul for food, things like that. And then he'd do this grand gesture of coming in with a load of, food or something. And you'd be like, that's not it. That's not what it was about. I got married on the 2nd of December. That's how things were never going to work. I got married on the 2nd of December and split up. That's a nice way of saying it. I threw Christy out on the 8th of December. And took Christy back on the 16th of December when he bought me a mahogany door. I was living in Joseph Mansions when he bought me mahogany door for Christmas. And I said, no, he's not all that bad. Do you know what? No, he's not. You're a head case, Paula. And so that was the pattern of my marriage. And that was what my kids saw. My kids saw me dismantle homes. They saw him dismantle homes as well, because although he wouldn't hit, Christy could break things. So my poor kids, in that I would have been trying to, they'll never witness this, and my thing was they'll never see their ma being hit. No way, I'll never. But they saw their ma hit their dad. They saw their home being wrecked. They saw me sit and see when I break things up, Rebecca, and throw Christy out. Christy went out, and what I found out later was Christy went out sleeping with whoever he wanted, on the drink, buying the best of clothes out of his wages, having a ball, and I'd be left sitting in the middle of the floor, surrounded where everything broke up. And when I look back and at the time I wouldn't have thought I'm traumatizing or I'm haunting my children, but I was. I mean, can you imagine the damage and they loved me and they loved their dad. And it happens in so many households. Kids love their parents, but when what you're seeing is your home that you love, that's your safety, should be your safety. So every time something like that happened, I suffer with guilt syndrome. I was told this by a therapist, by a psychiatrist. I suffer with guilt syndrome. So every time that had happened, I'd get more and more guilt. But what I did with my guilt, I pushed it down, and I pushed pain. I was pushing everything. I was like a powder keg about to go off. And what I also found out in later life, through therapy and through courses and women's groups and things, was when I start going through the menopause, I found out that, I actually suffered with really bad PMS. And I have, through blood tests, I have a hormone imbalance, Rebecca. And that hormone imbalance, and when I start doing that kind of work, every time I had an explosion, I could put up with Christy going on the drink for 3 weeks of the month and neglecting me and neglecting his kids and doing whatever he did. And then I could never understand why then all of a sudden I'd just explode. Well, it was PMS. I'd explode at a time when I couldn't manage my own feelings. So that was when I would say, enough. But my enough was in a violent outburst of enough.
Where do you think that came from?
I'll tell you. I think it came from not being able to control myself. It came from me ma lashing out. My ma could lash out in a second. My ma could love you to death, but lash out as well in a second. It came from that. It came from what I witnessed when I was young of someone being hurt. And then, it came from experiences that I had as a child that I had actually buried as well. And again, only found out like in adulthood, you know, where that feeling of not belonging, that feeling of being different, that feeling of this pain, this anxiety, all that, where it came from. So during my marriage, there was all this kind of stuff going on. And then I had decided, enough. I had 4 kids and I said, that's it. It's over, Christy. We can't go on like this. You don't want to be here. The man didn't want to be there. Like he'd say, and he still says now, you know, to people, because he's not good. But he'd still talk about me, and he'd talk about me as the only person he'd ever loved and things like that. And it probably was, and I probably was. But he didn't want to be there. He wanted a single man's life. So I had decided, that's it. Over, done, finished. And I thought of what I really actually did think it was. And what happened was, he talked me around, told me he had joined AA. And I said, because I'm a big joiner and I'm a big, you know, if something's happening, let's all do it together. So I joined for the families of AA. I went to 3 or 4 meetings, thinking he was going to meetings. Sure, he wasn't going to meetings at all. But we had got back together. And then after about, I'd say probably 3 months of being back together, he came in from work one evening. See, Christy was a chef and he did DJ. So he was always around drinking, always around. And that was like, you know, around women, around drink. So if he came in at 3 a.m, sure, he could be finishing a shift. Sure, wasn't any the wiser. And I was always happiest with the kids. Like, in a lot of ways, that must have been hard for him as well, because my life was them kids. Well, I thought my life was them kids. Back then it was. And I thought that was my wart. My wart was where I was like with my kids. So after about 3 or 4 months, he came in one night and I could smell alcohol. And I'd smelled it once or twice before. And he said, I had to be in the pub. It's on me clothes and whatever. But I knew. I just knew. And I said, no, I can't do this. I can't do it. But I was pregnant. And I was pregnant with Christopher. And that pregnancy, which was 32 years ago, was kind of the start of my mental health getting really, really bad. I felt trapped. I felt like I can't leave now. I can't not be with him. I'm having another child. And I really didn't want that baby. Now that's like, it's very hard to say that. Like, I felt like if I was to have any chance for me and my other kids, this shouldn't have happened. Like, this really shouldn't have happened. And I went I was walking, like, Christy wasn't given anything. Poor Danielle, when I think about her, God love her, she'd kind of step into the mammy role when I wasn't, like, I'd be out walking in the evenings. And by that stage, like, I was doing, like, I used to do early morning walk. So I used to walk, start in Pamela Scott's in the morning. So back then you had cleaning jobs, Rebecca. So they were 2 hours or 3 hours, but you got them done in an hour. We were all cheap somewhere. So I used to start at Pamela Scott's in the morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it was supposed to be a 2-hour thing. So it was Pamela Scott's, so it should have been from 5 to 7. And then it was, you know, the Kilkenny store?
Yeah.
So I used to clean the Kilkenny store. So the Kilkenny store was supposed to be from 7:30 to 9:30. What I used to do was I'd fly around Pamela Scott's, have Pamela Scott's done there, fly over to the Kilkenny shop, an hour and a half. Back in time, got the kids up for school, got them out. I'd come home, do a quick tidy around, and then I always had my job, and my job was always admin. So I had gone back into admin, but I only worked part-time because I had to be there to collect them from school. I always felt it didn't matter where I worked. I always wanted to be there because back then I thought that's my wart. My wart is that I'm a good mammy.
Was he ever there for the kids?
No, he was never there for them, Rebecca. Now, he'd be there in that, like, I just say, and like, even when we split up in that, I'd say, like, I hope you remember, like, the good times, because there was good times. Like, Christy was cook, and he'd always plan the dinner on a Sunday morning, and me and him would have a bop, and the kids loved all that. You know, all kids want to see is happiness, and their mum and dad together and that. So, yeah, and we'd go on holiday. We went on holiday with the kids. So there was things like that where he would interact. And then Patrick's Day, we'd be out for the day and all with him. But Christy wouldn't have, you know, and especially as time went on, he'd no interest. His big interest was, Christy's love was Christy. That was like, he probably wouldn't have wanted to admit it, but his love was him. Now, in fairness, that wouldn't have been, he wouldn't have had a great relationship with his dad. So he was lacking a male to show him how to be a father. But then I was about, I'd say probably 7 months pregnant on Christopher. I'd bled kind of all the way through on all my pregnancies, except on the 3 girls, and then on Blaine I didn't. And then I was back on Christopher. But on Christopher, I think it was the stress and all. I was bad. And I was about 7 months pregnant and I had a hemorrhage and Christy was nowhere to be found. And it was in the middle of the night. And my sister, one of my sisters lived in the flats at the time, Lorraine, and her husband, Johnny. And they used to slag, you know, for years that Johnny was the general. He had 2 sisters, so because he always looked after me and my kids. He's an absolute gentleman. So I sent for Johnny. Johnny came up, brought me up to the hospital. And Christy was found 2 days later. And I was kept in the hospital. And like the kids went to my sisters and things like that. But when I was in, the day I was coming home, my sister Anna collected me from the hospital and I'd been in 2 weeks. And when I came home, poor Danielle and Yasmin were trying to, you know, tidy. They'd been in my sisters, but he was in the house. But when they came home, he hadn't done anything. Like the place was upside down. And when I walked in, God loved them, they were trying to tidy for me, to make it nice for me coming home. And there was nothing in the fridge. There was nothing in the presses. So I was like, I'll just have to wait till he comes back, get money and get shopping and that. And he came in, and when he came in, Anna went home and I started scrubbing. I said, he'll be back soon, I'll get the money and go in and get the shopping. He came in big bags of, there was this clothes shop in Talbot Street called Neon, and it did all designer, really, men, all high end. Christy was very dapper. He dressed immaculately all his life. I wouldn't have a shoe on before. Christy would have top to toe in really expensive clothes. And he walked in that day with 2 bags of Neon. And I said to him, I didn't even look at the bags kind of at first. And I said to him, I need money to get shopping. There's nothing in the house. And he was, I've no money. It was a cousin of his wedding. I'm going to the wedding. Blah. And I was, screaming and shouting. But you know what? I didn't even scream. I was deflated. I had no energy anymore. I was looking at him going like, I just cried. And he just got dressed. Did himself all up and went to that wedding. And I went over to my sister Anna, and things weren't great for anyone. Like it was, Chris was born in 91. Financially, things weren't great for anyone. But Anna had £30. She had to get her own stuff. She had £30. So I went up to shop in Summerhill, the Gala. It's the Gala now, but it used to be Pierce's. And I got a few bits. And I went home and sat with the kids, did a bit of dinner, and then sat with the kids for a while, and the kids went to bed. And I remember sitting on the sofa and crying. And it was like, when I started crying, I just couldn't stop. And I was crying. I was still sitting up all that night. And the next day, he came home the next day and I was still crying. And I felt like something inside me was just going to explode. And then I got this, and it was the first time in my life I'd had a thought of suicide. And I got this like feeling came over me that, you know, you're not meant to be here, Paula. You're never going to be really happy. So just go. You're better off just going. But I was hysterical crying because I didn't want to leave me kids. But I didn't want that life. And I felt I was trapped. Like, I'm never going to get out of it. This is me now. And I remember just couldn't stop. I was, and then the kids went over and got me man. And Anna rang a doctor to come out. And when I heard the doctor was coming out, I ran in the bathroom and I closed the bathroom door. And I remember I wouldn't let anyone in, and I was in a really bad state. And my ma was, obviously because it was her way, my ma used to say, if you're depressed, you must have too much time on your hands. She didn't believe in depression. So my ma was at the bathroom door going, get out, them kids, you know, But that was only reinforcing to me. You're not a good mother, even Paula. You're no good to anyone. Like, and that was that night. I eventually came out and the doctor said, look, you need to go and talk to someone. You know, I now recognise that at that time, this was actually a breakdown. I was in the middle of having a breakdown and had been for months. But obviously because like back then you didn't go to therapists. No one went to therapists. No one would have even known a therapist to go to. And you didn't really talk about things like that because everyone had their own problems. So you didn't burden other people with your problems. But for the last 4 weeks of that pregnancy, it was just hell. Like I shopped and I did this stuff and got what I needed to get for a baby because I was having this baby. But there was no excitement like with the others. And there was no, this is going to be a new little life and I'm going to get, you know. And when I went into labour, Christy was missing. He'd been missing 2 days. He was gone and I went into labour. And again, I sent for Johnny. And Johnny brought me up to Rotunda. And like when I think about me, like he's just so good. And he walked the floor with me all night. When I was in, you know, they used to send you back down, walk. Yeah. I think they still do, but anyway. So me and him walked the whole night in the Rotunda. And the pains were getting stronger and getting stronger. And he said, let me go in with you. Don't, because you were allowed in at that time. Don't do this on your own. You don't need to, Paula. Wow. And I was like, no. I loved him. Now I love Johnny. Love him. He's a gentleman. But I was like, your brother-in-law see all that. Jeez, you'd never be able to look at him again. Yeah. And I said to him, no. I said, Johnny, I said, look, will you get Anna? That's me, sister. So Anna came up to Rotunda and Anna came in. And I was dreading, what am I going to feel when this baby is handed to me? Like, because I really didn't want this baby. And when Chris was born, they handed him to me. It was like handing me Danielle. He was the double of her. It was like the same baby all over again. And I got this overwhelming, like more than Danielle, more than Andy, this overwhelming love that I really felt I needed to mind him and protect him. But through that, like when Christy came up to see me the day after and that, and anyway, we went home together. And I remember the first night I came home, getting the kids to bed, and Christy went to bed, and I was sitting in the sitting room on the sofa. And I kept looking down at him. And I kept getting all this mad fear God was going to take him. Because I didn't deserve him. Why would God give me a perfect baby when all through the pregnancy I didn't want him? And on top of what I'd gone through in the pregnancy, and then this, what I now recognise to be postnatal depression, I was in an awful state. Like I was literally surviving. I wasn't living. I went into autopilot. And I have carried that feeling. Now, not now, but I carried it up till 3 years ago. I always thought God was going to take him from me. Like he was wild and he used to climb and bang his head. He had loads of sets. And I always said, God's going to take him from me. Because but with that irrational thinking, over the years, like I never dealt with the fact that I was postnatal depression, never felt that. You know, I never dealt with any of the stuff that I needed to deal with. And then when he was 9 months, I split up with Christy. It was gone, it was over, it was done. And I split up with him.
Was that a big decision for you? Like,
yeah, it was. Because, do you know what? It wasn't a big decision, Rebecca, but anytime I'd split up with Christy, it was in a fight, an argument. I was screaming at you, get out the house. I had said to him, look, I can't do this anymore. And he had done what he did when he said he went to NA or AA. Look, I'm going to change, I'm going to do whatever. So I loved the theatre. So he booked the Borstal By. I was playing on the gate. And he booked 2 tickets for the Borstal By. And we went to the Borstal By, the 2 of us. And we went for something to eat. And we came home. I had a lovely night, an absolutely lovely night. And I know he had. And we came home and we made love. And Christy fell asleep and I went out to the sitting room and I went in and had a shower and I was still sitting on the chair in the sitting room. Christy went up to go to the toilet at 6 a.m. and he said, what's up? You all right? Is everything? And I said, I want you to go. I want you to go. I can't live like this. I don't want to live like this. You don't want to be here. I know you don't. and I don't want to be here. So that was the final. I never went back again. I never. God. That was done, finished. But I thought when we split up, like, I don't know whether I had a fantasy that he was going to come and take the kids. You know, my kids were going to go to the daddy the weekend. Christy never did that. He never wanted to do it. It was never going to be. I remember once I dropped him. He got a flat in Buckingham Village, and I was sick of it. I was tired and I was fed up. And I was doing an acting course at the time, theatre works. And I dropped him up on a Friday, and I said, "You have to take them tonight," because I have a thing. I was in the Gaiety Theatre on the Risen People, and I said, "I have a show tonight, and you have to take them." I had no one else to take them that night. But he did take them, but he had a girlfriend underneath that I didn't know about. So he'd left the kids on their own in a strange thing, and he went downstairs, and they were in an office state the next day. And I said, "Look, there's no point. I'll never leave them with him again." And I didn't, and he never asked to take them again. But he also decided, when I split up with him, that he never had to pay for anything. So Christy never bought a bottle of milk for my kids, never bought them a birthday card, a Christmas present, communion, confirmation, nothing. When I was 6 years away from him, my best friend Sandy talked me into going for maintenance. Now, I'd want to kill her every time I think of this. And I said, "You know what? Yeah, you're right." And I went for maintenance and the judge awarded me £200. It was 100 for me, and I had 5 kids for Christy, and it was 20 for each of the kids. And I was like, I can't believe this getting 200. Yeah. And he never paid it. And he never actually paid it. And 6 months later, I was lying in bed, and I heard this screaming at the back window. I was still in the flats at the time. "Yeah, Lager! Yeah, Doge!" Someone fighting. Yeah. I jumped up to look out the window, and it was Christy's brother. What happened was, I didn't know. Christy had an attachment of earnings done when we went to court. And the attachment of earnings, the courts noticed that the maintenance hadn't been paid. So they went to pick him up, and he was in Mountjoy. They put him into Mountjoy for the weekend. And his brother, God love him, he died. He was an addict for years, Jared. A very soft person as well, but an addict. But Jared was defending his brother. That I had got his brother sent, but I actually didn't even know that this had happened. Anyway, he got out, and then we were back in court that week. I remember he was with what then became his new wife. He was with her, and he was with her father and a family member of his. And I was on my own in court, and I went anyway, and he had a solicitor as well. And we went into the room, and just me and him, they were all trying to walk in. Yeah. But the judge was, "No, it's family court, only the 2 people." So when we went in, the judge said, "Look, it's a non-payment of thing." And he goes, so we had this whole thing done out that this was what he pays out and all. So lies. But anyway, he had, that was £2 he was left with a week. And the judge was actually lovely. And because the judge knew, like I said, "Look, Your Honour, I have 6 years now. And long before that, I've kept my kids myself." I said, "I just felt after 6 years, he should pay something." And the judge was lovely. And the judge said, and he called me Mrs. Coakley, and he said, "Mrs. Coakley, if you can prove to me that this man he'd left his job, he'd gone off the cards. Right. If you can prove to me that he is still working or wherever, then I will come down hard on it." And anyway, the 2 of us walked out. And when we walked out, he said, obviously to what then became his wife, that, "I don't have to pay anything." And she went, we won. And I just walked over to her, and I said, "What did you win? You won that a father doesn't have to pay for his children. Shame on you, and shame on everyone who's with you." And I toddled out Dolphin House with my legs like that, shaking, rattling. Yeah. But I felt like, look, you said it. But anyway, I'm not just skipping a big chunk of my thing, because when I split up with Christy and I was doing the acting in the Gaiety, I met my youngest daughter, Holly. I met her dad, Jimmy. And I was in town one day with my sister Anna, and met Christy, and he had a big love bite on his neck. And I was like, "Oh, I'm actually going to do something myself." So anyway, fell into a fling with Jimmy and got pregnant on Holly. And anyway, had Holly beautiful child. Me and Jimmy were never a couple. It was, you know. And then 4 years later, I was still struggling bad with my mental health, still trying to hold things together, still battling so much. And then a horrific incident happened in the family. And when that horrific thing happened, I couldn't, like, it was like everything, the guilt, the me not being a good mother, the me not being, everything was just there, you know, it was an outburst of things. And that thing of wanting to kill myself just came back up. And I remember Johnny, my brother-in-law that I spoke about. So I had taken a load of pills and gone to sleep and woke up vomiting and feeling like really just... See, for years and years, Rebecca, I used to feel like, you know, like dirt. I never knew where the dirt came from, like, but I always felt I had a horrible feeling.
Why?
But what happened was when Johnny, when I had that suicide attempt, Johnny had organised through a local councillor, Christy, for me to go down and stay with monks down the country, a lovely retreat, and I was able to talk to the brothers down there and share things with them, but just shared, you know, what had happened and how I'd felt for years and how I'd felt actually even as a child of not belonging, but still never really touching on things. And then about a year later, I felt I had a bad breakdown, and I ended up in Vincent's Hospital. And when I ended up in Vincent's Hospital, psychiatric hospital, I spoke to a doctor, and the doctor obviously through teasing out what I was telling them, it was like, you know, when I was talking to him, it was like a light bulb came on. And I got this flash, this really, really vivid flash of me being abused. And I could see it real clear. And when I started talking to the doctor, it was like this flood of memories. It was like an avalanche just hit me. And I remembered it. I remembered everything really clear. And I'd kept all that buried and not even buried in that, you know, it would rear its ugly head and I'd say, keep that down. Just no memory. Just buried so deep down inside me now. But that was where the feeling of not belonging came. That was where the feeling of not being good enough. And you see, Rebecca, I spent like all my marriage life, my door was open. Like, this is the Everywhere We Go podcast table. My kitchen was the Everywhere We Go podcast table long before you had it. Everyone came into my home. I have 7 children, but I would say I reared probably about 20 others. Loads of people lived with me, go through bad times in their own families and they'd come and stay. I was always helping, and my door was always open to people. And I found out, like, through therapy and through, you know, working on myself, it was because I never felt good enough that I felt if I help other people, it was like a validation of, like, I never wanted praise for doing anything, but inside it was like, see, I'm not bad. I could kind of tell myself, you're not bad, Paula, look at you. But I wouldn't say that to anyone else because I didn't know where it came from. But it was there. And when I start talking about it and dealing with what had happened to me and going through a lot of other stuff around me all at the same time, like it was turmoil. At that same time, like I was in hospital for 2 weeks in Vincent's. And I remember the night I went in, I was that bad that he had to sedate me. And he sedated me with this mad injection. And I remember waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I had wet the bed. And I wouldn't be someone who like that had ever happened to. But they had me that out of it like that. I'd wet the bed. And I remember that just reinforced in me. Like, and I was like, why? Like, I need to just die. I don't want to be here. I'm no good to anyone.
How old were you, Paula?
When I would have been 36. I would have been about 35, 36. And I was like, no, I don't want to be here. I've never been happy. Like, when I say I'd never been happy, people would say, yeah, but yeah, I would have had periods and I would have had snippets of happiness. My kids, like my kids bring me, and all kids, I'm happiest around, well, not now as much, but for years, my validation to me was being around children. Because I always felt kids weren't judging me. I judged myself very harshly. I have always judged myself harshly, but I always felt kids didn't. So I was okay around kids. And so I would have had great times, laughing jokes with my kids, and I'd had great holidays with my kids, and I loved. But I never had inner peace. I never had inner happiness. I never knew what that really was. Now I know people would say, like, does anyone actually ever have that? But mine was a dysfunctional missing piece in me that, like, from a young age with me, and I mean a young age, when I reflect back in my teenage years, in the back of my head, suicide was normal. Like, I would have planned on so many occasions, just going, just you don't need to be here. And like, back then I wouldn't have been able to go to therapists. So I'd have talked myself out of it, and I would have, I'd have got over that. You got over it. And then I'd be grand again for a while. But I never actually left. And then when I was in Vincent's, and I was in for 2 weeks, and they wanted me to stay longer, but me ma, I got a phone call from me ma one night. Trojan woman, because she got me together. She rang and she said, hope you enjoyed yourself in there, because social workers are taking your kids in the morning. And I remember that night, pacing up and down, pacing. The medication, they gave you your medication about 9 o'clock. No, I can't. I have to keep my mind clear. I was up at 6 o'clock the next morning, I had a shower. I put on the mask that was Paula, and I knew how to do that because I'd done it for years. I knew how to make myself look okay when you're dying inside. And I was dying that day in Vincent's. I was dying, literally dying of death. But I went in to see Dr. Molyneux, the psychiatrist was, and I went into him. I said, yeah, I can go home and I feel a lot better, and any feelings of suicide ideology. No, just need to go home to my kids now and get back to normality, and I'll do outpatients. And I knew the words to say because I'd said them to myself for years. So I was an expert at putting on this mask. And I went home, and I remember going home and just still struggling, constantly struggling, but keeping the mask on. And about 6 months after I came out of hospital, I came out of Vincent's, like, me son Blaine, there was a good few kids around the flats, and they were used robbing blinkers off bikes, and the police knocked at the door, and it was like, snowball real quick. Suddenly Blaine was in trouble all the time. And now the first time he was ever in trouble, I found out him and another young fella had robbed a Man United jersey at what would have been a PlayStation game, I think, at the time, or maybe, I don't know what PlayStation is. And I brought him to Store Street Station. I found out who they sold him to. I went to their mother, and she basically told me to break my daughter. I'm so stupid. Trying to bring that child to the police. But I brought him to Store Street Station. I said, look, I'm out to find out my child's a thief. And because my ma had rare drugs, you never do that like that. And I thought I'd frighten him, so that would be the end of him. Well, instead of frightening him, it was like, it was constant with him. So then I had this like mad worry about him, and I was killing him. I was literally killing the child out of fear, because I could see, to me, like, because I had gone through the heroin epidemic in Ireland, in Dublin, and one of Christy's brothers had been a heroin addict. I seen the devastation, and to me, crime and heroin just went hand in hand. So I saw in the future, he's going to end up in heroin. He's going to end up in prison. So I was killing him more, trying to protect him. What I was actually doing was running through the streets, because he felt, well, there's no point. Every time I walk in, she's roaring and she's shouting, and things like that. And and then again, that was just reinforcing in me this feeling of not being good enough. You're not good enough. You're not a good man. Look, your child, I was in trouble. And like, there's 32 grandkids in my family, and no one ever got into trouble, like none of the other grandkids. So it was me. It had to be me. See, I was always great, Rebecca, at taking criticism. But so if that went wrong with my kids, hands up, it was me. It was always down to me. No one else did it. Paula did it. But if you were to say to me, isn't it amazing how good Yasmin is after doing? I'd be like, yeah, she's worked so hard and she's done. I never took credit for any of the good things that went on, but I was great at taking, criticism for the bad. So Blaine was getting into trouble, and then he ended up being brought before the children's court. And I remember going up that day, and I was in an awful state. The shame, Jesus, the shame was horrendous. And there was a guard on, an old guard used to manage the children's court, Pascal, his name was. And he came over to me and he said to me, your first time? And I said, yeah. And he said, you look real. I said, I'm just so ashamed and all. And he said to me, don't. I've seen guards, doctors, sons and daughters come in that door. Oh, Phil, look, this is. And I thought this was a hiccup. And Blaine's going to go out that because he's going to know that it's not going to happen. But it didn't. It escalated and got worse. And my mental health was getting worse. And I was functioning, and I got up every day and I did work, and I made sure my kids had this, and I made sure my home was right, and I did all that. But I was constantly dying inside, never happy. And then when Blaine was 16, I was in work one day. I was working for the Drugs Task Force. The irony it is, I'd just done my diploma in addiction studies. And this woman came into the task force office one day and she said, Paula, can I talk to you? And I knew what he is like, and I said, yeah. And she said, look, I'm wrestling with this the last 2 months, but I have to tell you. She said, your Blaine's on heroin. And I said, no, he's not. My Blaine? No. Because I have the qualifications that says I know what addiction is. So I'd have seen that. But you don't see it in your own. And a part of me, see, I wouldn't, I always accepted what people say as face value. So there was a part of me going, she wouldn't have made her up. She wouldn't have come to me and made her up. There was another part in the back of your head going, she has it wrong. Oh, she has it wrong. And I went home, and I remember I'd bunk beds in the house at the time, and I was in the house, and I looked at him, and I went in, I said it to him. And I remember he broke down sobbing. He just broke down sobbing. And I knew when he started crying, I was like, I don't. And it doesn't matter what you learn in textbooks. That's all gone when it's one of your own family. Because then a mammy jumps in, and the mammy thing. And I was like, I remember hugging him and holding him for ages and crying with him. And I'm telling him, this is going to be okay. Because I'm going to make you okay. Because that's my job, and I'm going to make you okay. And I went looking I walked into task force. It was his age. I couldn't get him in somewhere and whatever.
How old was he?
He was 16.
Wow.
He was 16 years of age. He had just got out of St. Patrick's Institution. He'd been sentenced to St. Patrick's, and he started using in St. Patrick's. That's where he started using heroin. And I went to Peter McFerry, and I asked Peter, and he said, I've nowhere for a child. And I said, is there anything I can do, like myself, to? And he said, look, the Lantern, it's one of his homes. The Lantern in North County Dublin is free. It's under refurbishment, and it's where he used to bring addicts to detox them. He said, if you're willing to detox me yourself, because he knew where I walked and he knew me background, if you're willing to detox me yourself and help, I'm willing to let you, the two of you, stay in there. So I organised everything. And
Jesus Christ, Paula.
My poor kids said, God help them, Danielle and Yasmin, like, this is, Ma, like, and they were broken hearted over him. It was just more trauma and more pain to them. But I remember they wrote him a letter. They all wrote him a letter when he was gone to tell him how special he was. And, what a beautiful person he was, and how my ma's going with you, my ma's going to make you be okay. And Peter McFerry drove me and him down to the Lantern. And although I knew about cold turkey, you don't know about cold turkey until your mind of your child is going through cold turkey. And he used to vomit and he had diarrhea, and he was sore. But the worst part of it was he was sore all over. And he used to rub cream into his body. And he used to keep saying to me, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry. And he was saying, no, son, you're going to get through this, you're going to be okay. And I used to, I'd read to him at night now. Blaine, Now, Yasmin would have in later life, but Blaine was the only one kind of took after me. Blaine loves books. He reads all the time. And he would have, so he loved me reading to him. And he used to keep saying, you know what, because like he was 16 and I was like watching his private parts now because he'd be destroying the energy. And he'd say like, his skin was crawling. I remember him saying like it was like spiders under his skin. And I used to cry myself asleep. But after about 6 or 7 days, Peter McFerry said, look, he came down to visit. And he said no, because he couldn't sleep, Blaine couldn't sleep. It's part of coming off drugs, you don't sleep. He said, no, you need to go on. No, I'm not a fit person. He said, you need to be going on walks in the evening. And I remember like I used to put him in the bath and I'd be sitting at the side of the bath, warm water for him, and I'd be rubbing him and like, you know, I used to feel so bad because like Blaine searched for his dad more than any of the others. Like he really searched for him, like all boys love their dad. And he searched for them, and Christy never, like of all my kids, Christy for whatever reason never took to Blaine. And he used to say, Nanny's boy, you know, things like that. And when I had Christopher, he made this big deal about Christopher being his son. Mm-hmm. Blaine was 4 or 5, like never had an interest. So my Blaine must have had some amount of pain. And anyway, then we used to go on walks at night, and he was coming around. He used to say to me, he's feeling a lot better. And thanks, man, never going to be out in so many. I don't know, loads of young fellas and they're strung out, man. They don't have a man like you. And I thought I'd cured Blaine. And we were down there for 3 weeks. And at the end of the 3 weeks, Peter McFerry came down to collect us. And I was like over the moon saying like he's better now. And he's going to go in to do this course and this. I had loads of things set up for him and all. And then we're driving home. And it was match day in Croke Park. And we got to do, you know, the Richmond Road? That's Richmond Road. And Mars pub on the Richmond Road was thronged with people. So Hedge drove, Peter McFerry, they call him Hedge. So Hedge was driving his van. And the van couldn't move, so we stopped in the thing. And in a split second, Blaine just pulled the van and darted. I was completely just broken. I was broken, like 3 weeks down there. And I really thought like that, you know, just get it out of your system and that'll be, obviously just a head story. Later on, obviously, it's not like, actually getting it out of your system takes 5 to 10 days or something, it's gone. Mm-hmm. And I went home to the kids and after being away from them for 3 weeks and they were brokenhearted and I wasn't. It was like, it was everything about it was just like constant trauma happening. It never stopped in the family. It was like you got over one little thing and then there was another. And I was an adult. And if I was broken with it, those poor kids must have been on their knees. Like, and you don't recognise your kids are on your knees about things because although you just think like kids are resilient and kids go over and you don't really say anything because you don't say anything. And then you're caught up in your own pain as well. And I was caught up in my own pain. But they must have, and I've recognised, and I've apologised so many times. They say to me, stop, you were a great man, you were whatever. But I always felt I owed them an apology. And I did. I have apologised to my kids. For, you know, stuff that I didn't have control over obviously happened as well. But my reaction to things that went wrong, I did have control over. And I withdrew and I was, you know, lost for so many years. And they bore the brunt of me being lost. But anyway, Blaine then, everything escalated with him. The addictions escalated, the crime escalated. You know, it was a snowball with everything. And there was a lot of other things going on. And as years went on, you adapt. Like, I adapted to living this life, that this is the way it was going to be. And I convinced myself, I wouldn't have said I took on a victim role, but it was a victim role because I decided, I said to myself, this is it, you're not meant to be happy. You're just going to always have pain and this is the way your life is meant to be. And that went on for years. And when Blaine was 17, Blaine had a child. I'd found out that this girl was pregnant for Blaine when she was about 6 months pregnant. Someone had come down and said to me, "Was this girl pregnant?" And Blaine was locked up at the time, and he was 17, he was back locked up, and who was she? I didn't know her, knew nothing about her, knew no name or anything. And I went looking for her. I went up to her family home anyway, and her mother said, "She doesn't live here. I put her out when she was 12. And anyway, I went looking, in the outreach services and that, and I found her. Small little, slight little thing. Broken child. She was a broken child. And because I'm a fixer up on myself, but I love fixing people. So I got her into a drugs project. She was a heroin addict as well. I got her into a drugs project. And through social workers, got her linked back in at MAD. She went home. And then, so we got this whole, thing of like, I'm going to help you with this baby. So I bought her a pram and all the things. I got everything ready. And we went on a visit, me, her and Yasmin one day up to the Rotunda. And we went in and I'd said to her, we'll go shopping after for baby stuff. And when we went in, they scanned and straight away you could see it was a boy. And I said, "Oh, that's a boy." And we went shopping. And when we went shopping, it was a bit of a strange thing. She knew it was a boy now. She was over with the girls' clothes. And when me and Yasmin was picking out boys' things. And then about 2 weeks before she had the little boy, her mother came down to the house and her ma said to me, "What's happening when this baby's born?" Because I don't know much about babies. That was strange, but anyway. So I said, "Well, look, she can come home here for a few weeks and I'll help her and whatever." And anyway, so that was the plan. She was going to come home to my house. I was going to help her get into a little routine and then we would help her with the baby. Anyway, so she went into labour. I went into the labour ward with her. And this beautiful little boy was born. And I just fell madly in love with her from the time he was born. And she was kept in hospital for 5 days, just in case withdrawals set in. And they didn't. And she came home on the 5th day. And on the sixth day, I brought the baby up to see Blaine. And when I went in to see him, Blaine was holding the baby and he kept sneezing. And Blaine said, "He's going through withdrawals." And I lost it. I said, "Yeah, dirty dish, you dirty say that about that baby. He's an innocent child." I was real angry. Like, why would you say that about him? One day was right. And so then, like, by day 7, I couldn't comfort him. Like, what happened was when she came home from the hospital, this was mad. So Yasmin collected us from the hospital. And when we came home, we do this thing when the kids come home, we have a welcome to the family. So all my sisters come and the family and we do a salad and we do a cake for the baby and that. And she had all that and she loved it now. And then after my family went home, I said, "Will you go up and have a bath?" Got her new pyjamas and all. And yeah, I was after buying her clothes from coming home from the hospital. And I said to her, "You go up and have a bath and then you have a lie down. Sure, I'll take him tonight and I'll have you a little sleep." She went up and had a bath and then she came down with clothes on her and she said to me, "Do you mind if I went up to my own house and slept tonight? And you're just mine?" And I was like, she's probably knackered. She was 17 herself. So I was like, she doesn't know. And that was it. We didn't hear from her again. So that was on day 5. So on day 7, when the baby started crying, the cry was louder and it was getting louder. Day 8, he was sneezing, his nose was running. It was a piercing scream. It was like a scream I'd never heard. And then on day 9, he was home from hospital 4 days and I said, "No, this isn't." And I convinced myself it was colic. I said, "This is, oh, jeez, I'm never a colic baby." And brought him up to Rotunda. And they knew straight away. I remember them putting him under the lights to heat him up. God. And I'm screaming with the lights. And the doctor said, "Is there substance abuse?" And I said, "Yeah," and whatever. Anyway, he was admitted straight away to NICU. And I remember I'd got word to her ma, who'd got word to her. And I remember walking in, we were up in the NICU, and it was like, it was like a room. Now, there were individual rooms, but it was like around the back of the NICU and Rotunda. And there was a good few kids, babies, screaming, high-pitched screaming. Now, I then learned these were all babies that were born addicted. And when you think you've heard a scream, Rebecca, you have never heard a scream of a child going through withdrawals. And I remember she walked in with a white Magnum Ice Pop. She was sucking a white Magnum Ice Pop. I remember her looking at him and I going hysterical crying, and she ran. She couldn't come back up. She was sobbing. So I said to them, look, I asked in the hospital, I said, can I stay with him? And he said, yeah, and he got me a camp bed at the side of him. And so they had everywhere dimmed because he couldn't stand bright lights or anything. And I remember I used to walk up and down at night and I used to sing to him, you know, my son, you are this. And I used to walk up and down at night singing. And my girls used to ring, you know, in the middle of the night. Jesus, I honest to God, I don't know where I'd have ever been without my girls. But they used to ring in the middle of the night to check on him and check on me. And like, they were amazing, they were. And he was in for 10 days and came home, brand new. And a pattern formed then where she'd sporadically come and visit him. And then I wouldn't see her then for ages. And I was like, oh, jeez, like, you know, I need some kind of, is he here? Is he, you know, whatever. And then that Christmas we were going to Florida. Myself and my partner Jason and his two daughters and my Holly and Christopher. And I said, she's not going to be able to, or is she going to take the baby? What's happening? Am I taking the baby? And the drugs project she was in, that she went to sporadically, was the Crin and You project. And it was one of the projects from the drugs task force that I looked after. And Joe Lucy was a Jesuit priest. He was the manager of that. Joe was amazing. And I went to Joe and I was telling, and Joe said, look, we know you have the baby, Paula. You know, we know that. And Joe said, book the baby, Paula. She's not going to be, he said the name, she's not going to be able to take, you know, the baby for Christmas. So you, and sort of. So I had to do this whole thing of looking for.
Paul, watch that time because that's going to have to be edited.
So I had to look for her to sign, you know, the affidavits that I would take him out of the country. I ended up having to go to court because she didn't turn up at the solicitors to sign the thing, just to get him a little passport. And then that became the norm with her. She was in and out of his life, in and out of his life, in and out of his life. And then when he was 12, like I used to tell him about her. I used to call her the tummy mummy, and she turned up at the odd time and that. She's a tummy mummy, and, you know, like, she loved you so much, but she couldn't look after you, so she wanted you to stay. And then when he was 12, he was coming home from boxing one night with his friends, and she met him, and she was out of her head, and she decided she was entitled to a hug. So she said in front of all these little mates from boxing, I'm your man, give me a hug and whatever. And he was all embarrassed, you know, the way kids, 12 years of age, are coming into the teen years, everything embarrasses you. And she said to him, so you won't hug me, will you not? And he was like, go on away. But he told me after, he said, I just wanted to get away, ma. And she said, oh, you won't hug me, will you not? Well, you'll see. And she took a Stanley blade out of her pocket and she sliced herself up in front of him. Now, she sliced herself really bad in front of him. And like his life changed in that moment. His whole life changed. And he came home in an awful state, sobbing and crying. And then he told me, like, even a couple of years later, you know, that he had this guilt of, should he rang now an ambulance came, a police and all came, there was a big hullabaloo. I wanted to actually kill her. It was probably the only time since I wanted to kill that girl on that night. But in that instant, his life changed as well. And I'm not going to go into things, but everything about his life changed. And the little boy that he was changed. And then, like, it was like history repeating itself. He started doing everything his parents did. And now we're in a situation where his whole life has dramatically changed. And another family's life dramatically changed, which is devastating for me. But when in 2020, both, you know, like, it was like trauma after trauma within the family. And in 2021, the most devastating thing that could ever happen to any family happened. And again, I just felt like I can't protect anyone here now, and this is the end of it. And what's happened now, there's no coming back from. So I'm done, I'm finished. And I remember tearing my face. And I just couldn't tear it off. I wanted my face off. And I ended up with it was like a tiger had clawed me. My face was destroyed with. And it was like, in that moment, a message that a woman who ran family support for years, Sadie Grace, knew what was going on. And she offered me to go down to a retreat, monk priests again, religious retreat. And just to try and rest my mind. My sister Anna came with me, fair play to her, poor everything on hold, job and knowledge came with me. And I used to do, walks around the convent that night and all, and walks up along Glendalough. And I remember talking to a nun, having this counsel session with a nun, and the nun saying to me, I told her everything. And I told her absolutely everything. And she was lovely, Peggy her name was, and she said to me, you keep saying everything that bad happens in your family's all down to you. But you're telling me as well about how well your kids do. Do you not think you had an input into that? And I think that was like a little, it was just a seed that got planted. And I was like, maybe. And I remember coming home from there and feeling a little bit more. Now, I had an awful lot ahead of me. And as a family, we had an awful lot ahead of us. But I remember coming home from there feeling a little bit more I always had faith, Rebecca. My ma wouldn't have been religious. And I don't know where my faith, as strong as it was, came. But I always had faith. And I always prayed. But when I came home from that convent, I just, a friend of mine, a friend of Jade's, Stacey Smith, said, look, why don't you come to church? And I obviously thought she meant church, Catholic church. I said, I can go on Sunday, but if I really want to. And she goes, no, I go to Christian church, Paula. And she brought me over to Abundant Grace in Ringsend. And you see, part of that traumatic thing, what happened in January 2021, Rebecca, it devastated me because I always had faith that I think overall I've lived a good life. I mean, I have always done a good turn. I can say, I could take to my grave, I've never hurt anyone. And I've never done anyone harm. And it's not praise or a thing. I can take that. I know that. That is 100% my truth. I've never done anyone harm. So, but my thing was, I believed I was going to go to heaven. But because of what my child did, was I going to see my child in heaven? Was that not going to happen? I couldn't live with that feeling of I wasn't going to see him again. And Jesus had come to Abundant Grace. And I went over to Abundant Grace. And Sharon Berry is the pastor over there. And Stacey said to me, tell her everything, Paula, just tell her. And I remember going into a room with Sharon and pouring everything out and telling her what had happened. And I remember saying to me, God loves everyone. And God forgives. And you will see your boy in heaven. And I was like, see, I was raised in the Catholic Church, hellfire and damnation. This, it's all about punishment. Catholic Church was all about punishment. So that's all I believed was punishment. And she told me, in about an hour and a half in a room with her, she told me about this loving God who would forgive anything and who loves me and who died for me. He sent his son to die for me. And then I went out into a church and there was worship music and I heard testimony of people. And all those years before, when I went into that incubator, that NICU, and saw my Danielle, and that first time in my whole life got that feeling of wholeness, I got that multiplied by 100 in that church that night. And I was like, there's something in this. There's definitely something in this. And then I used to go to Abundant Grace, and then I I was a church hopper at the beginning. So I tried a few churches and I loved the worship music and I felt elevated. And I'd always had a Bible. I never read the Bible. And then, I was 57 years of age at this time. And I started reading the Bible. And then Stacey said to me, would you not come down to Ballybock, Paula? And I went down to Ballybock, and where my church is. And I went down to Ballybock and I met Pastor John. And told him what brought me to church and why. And like, that man just oozed goodness, but oozed. You could see Jesus in him. You could see love. I knew I was accepted there. And I was able to tell in that church, I was able to tell my truth. I was able to say what happened to me when I was a child. I was able to say what went wrong with my kids. I was able to say what, And I just felt accepted. I felt like there was no one judging me. Nobody judged me. All everyone wanted to do was love me.
No shame.
No shame. And you know what, Rebecca? I had, without knowing, I had to carry shame. From that little kid, that little 6-year-old child, I had to carry that shame that was my fault, what was happening to me. And that just went on and on for years. And in that church, and in my church, I found acceptance and I found the love of God. And in the Bible, I actually found the answer to, I still find the answers to absolutely everything. And I have had, like, people who say to me now, like, for years I would have gone around. Like, I had a period of where I was on a walking stick. I had fibromyalgia, I had hypothyroidism, I had Graves' disease. I'd been diagnosed with loads of illnesses. And I was on a walking stick. I was like ill. I was ill for years and years and years. And I thought, well, they were physical, because they are physical ailments. But I actually thought that I was like really sick and everything as well. And when I start going to church and I fully gave myself to Jesus, I start getting a little bit better. And then I remember getting a blood test. And for the first time in about 20 years, my bloods were, all the levels that were all over the place were coming down. And within about, I'd say, a year of going to church, my health had taken a dramatic, everything was brilliant. I couldn't. And I'd meet people, I started doing myself up, I started taking a bit of pride in myself and all. And people, it stopped me and said, "How are you looking brilliant?" And it was that time where I'm sure the whole community thought, now, she's going to be on her knees now with everything that's going on. And I was looking like it, I was thriving. And I was thriving. But I was thriving because I feel, and I know I had the love of Jesus. And I had acceptance from a community of people who, it didn't matter what had gone on or what hadn't gone on. These people, like, our church has its motto is, come as you are, leave better. So I went to that church broken. And I was broken. And 3 years later, like, I was baptised last year. One of the proudest moments in my life. And it just, it even made me stronger, my bond with God. I wake up every morning now. I have done now for 3 years. I wake, for years of planning my death. I now half make bargains with God. 40 years? Not 40 years, go on, you can do it in 40 years. Make me 100. But I'm like, I want to live. I have so much to live for. I rejoice and I love every day. I wake up every day now and I'm like, it's a new day. I never had control over so much that went on. And I gave everything that happens in my life now. Whatever is going on, I have this mantra that I say to Jesus now, I leave these at your feet. All my worries, all my pain, all everything, I leave it at your feet. And I trust that you will. And for years and years and years, like there's a saying in with Christians, like, we use God as an emergency exit. And we do. Something's going wrong in the family, please God, if you just step, and we pray fervently, and we're real. And then things kind of work themselves out one way or another, and then everyone forgets God until the next emergency, where we should be using them as a triumphant entry. It should be every day. I wake up every morning, Rebecca, and I give thanks and gratitude to Jesus for another day, for that sleep I had last night, for that comfortable bed I lay in. And as soon as I got out of bed, I go to the bathroom, then I come back in and I read a couple of passages out of the Bible. Turn on my worship music and I get ready and I welcome the day. My kids do say, like, and I know it has benefited them because they say, you know, like Danielle only, like last week, she was saying, all I ever wanted was for you to be happy, Ma. And like, obviously I still have that little thing because I wouldn't be normal of, God love her, she shouldn't have wanted that for me because she should have had a man that was. But I wasn't. I had a lot of pain in my life and I didn't know how to deal with the pain and I didn't know how to. But in the last 3 years, and I know going forward in my life, besides being a better ma to them, and they'd sit with me, they'd say, my ma was brilliant, my ma was this. Mm-hmm. But what I love about him is, Rebecca, and I raid him like this, and I'm proud of this part of it. My kids pull me, and I've always pulled me. I'm bullshitting. Mm. Give it over, Paula. They stop me and they can pull me, and they're able to. Mm. It's not like I didn't raid him the way my ma. We wouldn't be allowed to say it to me. I wouldn't allow it. Mine will tell me when I'm wrong. But they also tell me when I'm right. And they love, for years they used to do that, but I couldn't hear them saying the things I was doing right. And like Danielle would say, when I'd say, and I know Danielle's going to be saying when she hears I'm doing this, she's going to be saying, but you shouldn't have been feeling like that and all. But I do feel that because I did feel like she had to take on a role at a young age that she shouldn't have had to have. That I do feel that, you know, me boys, you know, they lacked a father figure. That I used to say it's because of the man I chose. But in reality, I chose a person I fell in love with. I didn't know he was going to be, you know, the way he is. And like for years, they had no relationship with their dad. And in the last, now I always left the door open for Christy because I used to always say, I wouldn't like them to say, because my man, that relationship broke, that she didn't let him. So I always left the door. I used to pop in and out. Never did that with him. I gave the man. Mm-hmm. But in the last few months, like a few years ago when Yasmin was getting married, they had reconnected with him because he was very ill. They'd reconnected and they had a lovely little bond for a while. And then he messed up again with him. And that's a patron of Christy. He's an alcoholic. He's a chronic alcoholic. He can't help. It's a sickness. And like Yasmin she's all about boundaries. And Yasmin would be great at telling them all about their boundaries. And I have to say, I'm proud of them. They have boundaries now. Now, Jade she'd be a lot like me in the softness of wanting to help. So she's full in there with that, collecting and bringing them out to the house and doing all run around after them all. And they all have now made their peace. You know, they've all accepted where he is. And I love that about it because I wouldn't want, you know, I don't want him to be hurt either. I don't want him to, you know, because he's not good. He's not well. He has a lot of illnesses. But he didn't have a great. So he went about things wrong in life. But I'd love him to have peace in his life. And more than anything, I want my kids to have peace. And we're all jigsaw puzzles. And I believe when you have all the pieces fit, you're a better person. So he's part of their jigsaw. So with him, you know, them linked back in the way they are now, it's only going to benefit them. Benefits me seeing them happy. And they now have a ma who is very content, very peaceful in her life. Looking forward to what the next chapter in my life has. I still am there, like even in where I work today, they call me the mammy. I still have that thing of wanting to help and that'll never leave me. But I've boundaries now that I never had in my life. I don't have Tom, Dick and Harry coming into my home with all their problems. Like, if you need help, I will give you help. But my home is my sanctuary now, rather than it's anybody. I have people sleeping on sofas and everything, and you know, switching around beds. Just they need to stay. You know, well, it wasn't good. It wasn't good for me kids, but it was my way of thinking I was helping people. But look, a child's home is a child's. People. I did. No, I know, Rebecca, because do you know, I still get mails. Like I was only telling Jade's doing hairs in the house today. I was just telling Jade I got a mail. DM from a girl who sent me a thing to say she's lying on a beach and she said, you just popped into my head and I just want you to know you're the most beautiful, kindest person who ever came into my life. She would have had problems with that. And you're out the bottom. I just want to say thank you for that time. And over the years, like other young people who would have come and gone to me home, you know, they'd send little messages out of the blue. Oh, when things were bad in 2021, like the amount of people like that, I not forgot about, but I was happy that they'd moved on with their lives and they were doing good. But the amount of them turned up, Rebecca, with like flowers for me, a pair of pajamas, a candle, things, private messages, you know, all just acknowledging that I did help, and I know I helped, but your home has to be your home, Rebecca. Your home has to... Would I have loved the white picket fence? I was in Mills and Boone all my whole life. So I would have loved the mammy and the daddy and the white picket fence and all my kids being great. And had my marriage worked, I'd probably had 20 kids. Because I wanted all that. That's what I wanted. I wanted all that. It wasn't to be. I do believe children thrive and children are better in a home where there's love and there's harmony. And if it can be to a mother and a father. Unfortunately, sometimes that can't happen, you know, and for whatever reason, there's all different types of families. And as long as there's love and there's security, you know, kids will thrive. I think in some ways, you know, over the years, and I acknowledge that security with my children. Yeah, I was always there, and I was always there. I was a very, very present mother. I joined every club they joined, I joined. I was on every committee in every school, parents committees and management committees. I became an Irish dancer when they became an Irish dancer. I did feshes. I was involved with everything. So I was a very present mother. But their home was not. You know, like Danielle would say, or Yasmin or Jade, what did they say? There was often times that, you know, when they were married and that, they'd pop up to tell me something. And I'd have someone who I felt was on their knees and needed to chat. But they needed to chat. So my home has now changed in that. And it's very peaceful.
That's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you were here on this side with one hand, helping and supporting. And yeah, the kids needed that.
The kids, and I wasn't.
But you couldn't see the wood for the trees because you were so involved in that. And talking.
And I always thought they were okay. Like, they were married and they were married and they were happy and they had, you know, they were workers and I would have always gone, they're working and they're married, you know, they're settled.
Yeah.
Thank God for my girls are settled. But like they were all having their own little problems that I just wasn't seeing. And for that's another, like, and I don't know, I don't beat myself up about it anymore now. Like 4 years ago, I'd been on my knees at that. If I'd have got that realisation, it would have been another thing of me being this horrible person and I'd have just bet myself. Now it's like, I made a mistake. I did.
You thought you were doing good.
Good, yeah.
You thought you were doing, and that was keeping you busy. But this was happening here, but that was keeping you busy.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, always having other people around as well kind of kept my mind going all the time. I didn't really ever deal with my own.
And that's the thing, like a lot of people that know you, and now I know you through everything, through the community of the podcast, the one word everyone describes you, and it breaks my heart because of what you did. Sorry, the one word everyone describes, you're a lady. Like, you're a fucking lady. And everyone, no, but they do. And like Beverly says to me, like something happened in her home and she had to get out of it and she went to your house. So I know all that, and like, look at your girls now. Look what they've done for themselves. Look how, like, Danielle and doing our midwifery, Yasmin doing all her stuff, the council helping so many other people. But you, kids survive. People are here today because of you, and that's the truth, Paula. People are here, standing and living and gone on to have children and living their lives because you had that door open for them. Do you know that?
Yeah. No, and now, Rebecca, I can actually acknowledge that. Now I can. And I'm grateful that I was able to do that for people. I am grateful that I was able to do that for people. And I love when I get, you know, I hear someone that came through my home is after getting married and they're doing well. And the thing about me is, even though I feel like, you know, did I let my kids down while I was on that path of helping others? I know the type of person I am. That's always going to be a part of me. That's that part of me where I can't see hurt people, you know. There'll always be that part of me where, like, if you can help someone, why would you not want to? Why would you not like, people say, in life, I used to have this thing and I'm sure lots of people do who comes from, say, the inner city, you have this thing when things go wrong for you. Everyone around is in the same boat, and it's because we're all, but the people who come from posh places, sure, they have everything together and all. And I've walked, Rebecca, I've had a very varied life, and I've walked in places with very, very well educated people from very, very well off places. And even now I would be very close to people whose lives is in their hands. And the struggles, everyone has struggles. Everyone. And you know what it is with me? Like people would say, I never told that to anyone in my life. And I told you, I have sat with professionals who have opened up to me and told me things, and I'd be like, geez, that's mad. I would have never thought he was going through that or she was going through that. And we all have hurt and we all have pain. And you don't know. And my thing used to always be about, I used to always say, but what if I'm the last person that they talk to, or what? If someone has, I remember, I had this, I'll just tell you this quick one. This girl years ago, I had her from a young age. A lot of problems in our family. She used to come to me all the time. And her mum died when she was 12. And she came and stayed with me for ages. And then she went on drugs at about 15 years of age. And she had a child, and then I was up seeing her with the child. And, it was... Anyway, the child ended up being taken into care. And she went missing for a few years. And at my door in the flats, I was in the flats, she knocked at the door. It was Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas. And she knocked at the door. We were all in bed, 2:00 in the morning. And she was dirty and dishevelled and all. And she had got the night boat over from England. And, she was in an awful state. And I took her in and gave her food and washed her and hugged her and talked to her and sat up for her the night and made her a bed on my sofa. And the next morning, I brought the kids to school. Yeah. And when I came back, she was gone, and everything was folded on the end of the thing. And I was like, oh, geez, I have to try and find her because she's in a really bad way. And that afternoon, one of my sisters came up, and it was 2 weeks before Christmas. You know the way you have your Christmas press, where you put the new clothes and the duvets and the towels and all. Yeah. And she said, you all finished? And I said, I was walking around the clock at the time. And I said, I got 6 of them. And I said, yeah, I'm nearly done. Man, I show you. It was nothing. I mean, nothing. Not a set of clothes. She cleared me out.
Oh my God.
She cleared me out. I was brokenhearted and devastated. Witch. But, so she went back to England, sold all the stuff, and she went back to England. And anyway, we got through Christmas, and then I didn't see her for years. But she was always on my mind. And then I was at an art exhibition one night. And it was an art exhibition done by a drugs project. And I looked down the thing, and I looked again. And I knew it was her. And I saw her, and she was, running, jumping. Nervousness, obviously nervousness. Yeah. And I walked over to her, and I put my arms around her, I hugged her real tight. And I said to her, it's okay. It's okay. They were material things. Now at the time, Rebecca, I was on my knees, but, in time. And I hugged her and I held her, and I said to her, I had her from a kid. She had a very bad life, that child. And I was hugging her, and I remember her saying to me, she said, Paul, I don't know why I did that to you, because you're the only person I ever felt loved by. And as years went on after that, we were really close. She used to come up to me all the time. And she died a few years ago. And honest to God, it was her anniversary in January, and there's not a night goes by when I wouldn't say, I always offer a little prayer for her. And that's over the years that, you help people. And some of them, look, I'm not helping. I have never helped someone who had it all together in life and everything was great. You're helping broken people, and broken people can hurt you. And that was something that she did. And I remember at the time everyone saying, that better lay you, close your door. You can't save the world. All this. Never stopped. I still, and to this day, although I have boundaries, if something happened in the morning or in the middle of the night, someone was to knock at my door, that door would be open, because I don't know whether I'm the last person that person is going to talk to, or that, you know, maybe that person, like I contemplated suicide loads of times. What if I said, oh, look, I can't talk tonight, like I'm minding me home and I don't, and that person went, sure. Sometimes all someone needs to snap them out of a bad thought, or, you know, like being at, you know, that low is just a kind word. And I think if everyone in the world was just a little bit, it's not to say, because I'm far from a saint, but if everyone just had a little kind word, and don't be always looking to one-upmanship someone, like, look, if you're doing well, you're doing well. And we're all entitled to, like, we work hard. So if you're doing well, you're doing well. But it doesn't mean that, you know, you need to be overboard with it. And look, we're human, we have a bitch about people. You wouldn't be normal if you didn't have a love it out gossip and love it out. You wouldn't be normal. But you don't have to gloat on people's hardships and gloat on, because nobody knows what's around the corner from them. Like, when you get pregnant and you feel that life inside you, you start making plans. And I know 100%, there's not a mother of a heroin addict in this world who, when they were pregnant, said, my child is going to be a heroin addict, or my child is going to commit crime. Nobody knows. I had big plans for my child. Big plans. If this was going to be this, it was going to be this, and it was going to be that. Because I came from a family where you grew up and you worked hard and you paid for everything in your life. And now 32 grandchildren, like, we have school teachers, school principals, accountants, like everyone are workers. I would never have thought one of my kids were going to go like that. So you can't judge. You should never judge. My mum used to say, those are rain be spared. And it is a true saying. Don't judge, because you don't know. Like, there's so many kids who go through things in their childhood and don't know how to cope with it as adults. So they turn to either substance use or self-harm or whatever. So, like, just be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Just be nice.
Come here, tell me about your partner.
So, Jason. Poor Jason. I'm with Jason 22 years. And we never lived together now.
Really?
No. Nope. I've never... Paul is after going, what? No. Yeah, no. Like, Jason is my best friend. He's my best friend. He is my confidant. He is someone who has never, ever, like, it doesn't matter what I tell Jason. Not only does Jason, now he's very black and white. Jason is black and white in life. Right is right and wrong is wrong. He doesn't judge anyone, and I mean nobody. He's not like, Jason be very quiet, where I'm the life and soul of a party. Jason is sitting there like that. We go away together. We have brilliant holidays. I can tell him anything, and I mean anything. And I rely on him, and he relies on me. We have a lovely friendship, a lovely bond, and a lovely love. And it's a really deep, deep love. Like I used to say, because of everything that had happened to me, I don't love men. Can't stand men, actually. Men. I love Jason. I love him with a deep respect. And like, I really, he's so good. He has faults, of course he has faults, but he's so good. Like, Jason's a real, like, you know, a background. Like, he'll say to me if that's going on, you all right? You know, and I'd say, you know, you tell what's happening or what's not happening, and he'd say, do I need to do anything? Or does he need to give? Does he need to, you know, he'd be real in the background, but a tower strength. And he loves me. And I never, other than my kids, Rebecca, I never thought I was worthy of love. And I know Jason loves me. And that's a lovely feeling. It's actually, like 4 years ago, I didn't feel like Jason loved me because I didn't feel I should be loved. But now, because I do, I've opened myself to being loved, and I know he loves me. And that's like, we'd just slag each other. We'd be toddling around to each other for a bit on a Saturday night on Zimmer frames. And, you know, it's a joke and it's a laugh for us. Now, obviously, there is going to come a time we are going to live together. But what I'm not going to try and fix what's not broken. And at the moment, it's not broken. You know, Jason's set in his ways and I'm very set in mine now. I'm comfortable with myself. I was never comfortable with myself. I had to have gangs around me, because if I didn't have gangs around me, then I had to think, and every time you went into your head and then you... But I'm very comfortable with myself now. So I like being on my own. I like sitting there at night now. One of my grandsons, Billy, moved in with me. He's no bother, little walker, great kid. Romy, Jade's young one, she's still there. And then it's the family home. So if anything's going wrong with any of them and their kids, bag and baggage, that's the family home. We make room and we, you know. But when there's no one there, I equally enjoy it now, where I didn't think I would have ever. So yeah, me and Jason, we go and see nice places. We were only in Vienna 2 weeks ago. And I love old churches and I love old museums. And he was like, you're 22 years dragging me around all this. Done. Jason's holiday is, give me a few pints with you. And so, you know, yeah, it's good. Life is good, Rebecca. Life is good.
Good. And I can see it in you.
Yeah.
I can see that you see it in you like now. And even we had a lovely day last year, us in Lorraine.
Thank
and all
you.
that. Like, a lovely day.
Brilliant day. You know, we still laugh about it. Me and Lorraine, we still laugh about it.
And like even meeting the people that day and everything. And this is why, like, as I said, I've been dying to get you on, because I think you're an incredible woman. You're an incredible lady, as you're known as. And just to say, we leave it there. And thank you so much, Paula.
Thanks, Rebecca.